My whole thing is like, whether it's work or fitness or whatever it may be, I'm never going to stop. I'm going to do a little bit every day, and I'm just going to continue grinding it out, because I have this fear of falling out of the routine and getting to the point where I'm like, I have a ton of room to make up for all this lost time. I would rather chip away slowly yet surely and see compounded growth versus some sort of overnight viral sensation. When I ultimately do have kids, I want to be someone that is setting a good example for my children, right? In taking care of myself mentally and physically. But also, when I haven't exercised, if I'm not doing those things, I'm not my best self.
Joe Cicero, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
I've been an admirer of you for a while because of something that you're doing that I think is really special around here, is that you're the owner of a gym called Go Yard. It's Go Yard or The Yard?
The Yard.
The
Website
Yard.
is Go Yard. Yep.
The Yard. And it came across my profile on Instagram because I saw that this whole concept is about pods. So it's a building where you have several pods that have their own gym equipment inside, and people just pretty much sign up to go into their individual pods, and they have everything there that they need to do their workout. And I'm like, that's a cool concept, because I've never seen that before. I mean, maybe it existed somewhere, but I've never seen it around here. And then once I found out that you're local, then I said, I got to bring you on one day. So how did this whole thing get started with The Yard?
The original inspiration is the traditional barber shop, right? Where the shop owner rents out chairs to independent contractors. At The Yard, about 70% of our business is independent personal trainers who are renting out pods and bringing their own clients. I first moved out here from Boston in 2018, and at the time was working in Oakland. And I was out for coffee or something and passed a studio, a former Pilates studio that was closing down, and they were looking to sublease the space. And I don't know what clicked, but something clicked, and I thought this concept would work there. So I put together a business plan, started negotiating the lease, started doing all the things that you would do to kind of start a business. And one of those things was speaking to a business owner here who was running a gym, a successful gym. And he was super generous with his time. He didn't know me. He didn't need to talk to me. So I was very grateful. But the tone of the conversation was like, dude, running a gym is hard. Everyone wants to do it. Do something else. So between that conversation and, the personal guarantee that comes with the lease, all those things, I just got cold feet and backed out of the deal. So fast forward 3 years, COVID has passed. COVID was still a thing into 2021, but the worst of it had passed. I had spent most of 2020 back east with family. So my family's upstate New York. My fiance's is Connecticut. We came back to SF and saw all these vacancies, amazing spots in awesome neighborhoods, former gyms that were renting for a fraction of what they were pre-COVID, and awesome incentives around several months for no rent and things like that. So I ended up pursuing 2 or 3 spaces, thinking if not now, when, and the third space I ultimately landed on ultimately became our first location at 2863 California. And it turned out that the previous tenant was the same guy who I spoke to back in 2018. So it kind of came full circle.
The one that said, stay out of this business.
Exactly.
That was him.
And again, he didn't have to speak to me. It's not like he was, sensed any competitive threat or anything like that. He was being very generous. And some of the things he said, definitely are true. It is a tough business to run. So I was super grateful to have that conversation with him.
Well, I definitely want to get into what makes it a tough business. I mean, the fitness industry in general, it seems so saturated. So I'm sure it's trying to compete with all the other facets of people who are personal trainers, other gyms, big corporations like 24 Hour Fitness and Equinox. That's in and of itself. But first, I kind of want to get into what made you get into this in the beginning. What was your idea growing up in Rochester?
Yeah. I played football competitively up through college. And after I graduated, I moved out to Boston. I was working in finance and consulting out there, and missed the whole competitive nature of, being on a team and playing in sports. So I've pretty much been powerlifting, for the last 20 years. I'm 33. So the majority of my life I've been powerlifting. There have been a million times prior to starting the gym where I was, fantasizing about doing it, after COVID, seeing all the vacancies and the opportunities here. I thought if I was ever going to do it, now was the time.
Was this your first business?
I do some real estate investing.
Okay.
So that was kind of my first foray into entrepreneurship. And then when I moved out here, I was working at a company called A3 Ventures, which is actually a subsidiary of AAA, the car towing company.
Yeah.
So we were doing a lot of investing in startups, incubating new businesses, acquiring businesses. So between that and doing real estate investing, that kind of got my entrepreneurial juices flowing. And I always tell people that getting into real estate is actually a great way to kind of, it's more than dipping your toe into entrepreneurship, but it's a good way to do it because there's proven strategies and methodologies, right? Like, buying a property, fixing it up and renting it is something people have done millions of times and for, forever. So there's a playbook you can follow, and you can kind of test your risk appetite and whether it's something you really want to do, because when you go off and start your own business separate from real estate, especially a new concept, it's a whole new can of worms. So, the real estate stuff has been and continues to be an awesome learning experience for sure.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. You were in an area where you just sort of developed businesses and then sort of, my experience in doing this, plus an idea that I have about a gym that I've never seen around here, or that even, did anybody ever do this before? How did this idea of the pods specifically come to your mind?
In San Francisco, there's probably a dozen private gyms for independent trainers to bring their own clients. But as far as I know, no one's doing the pod concept.
Is it done anywhere else in the country that you know of?
Not that I know. Not at scale. There are a few one-off cases, where, you can reserve a room, or there's a few micro gym concepts out there where, a building owner is leasing out, a few hundred square feet, for a gym. But the approach we're taking, I haven't seen elsewhere.
What's your philosophy on what? It sounds like it's an obvious question, but I kind of want to know, what's your philosophy on why you think most people even go to the gym? Is it the aesthetics? Is it the health? Is it they're all going and they're my friends, so I kind of need to go with them, a social thing? What's your mindset as to why people mostly would go to the gym?
Generally, or the yard specifically?
We'll start with generally, then we'll get into the yard.
Yeah. I think it's twofold. I think aesthetics, right? Looking good is important to a lot of people, especially in the age of social media. But one that I'm seeing and one that I've experienced firsthand and one that I promote is the mental health benefit, right? Getting moving in any way, but particularly resistance training, is proven to be super beneficial for your mental health. On the aesthetic side of things, it's great to look good, and I think everyone should aspire to be their best selves physically and mentally. But you're on Instagram, you see that obsession with aesthetics and look can become a bit unhealthy, So I've recently been thinking about that, right? This whole idea of wearables, for example, right? In the industry, we have so much data on the way we're performing, the way we look, the way we feel. And again, having visibility into that stuff is super important, and it's great, especially if it's informing the way you're living your life. But the pendulum can swing totally in the opposite direction, where it's you become obsessed with this stuff, and what was originally supposed to be a healthy habit is becoming an unhealthy one. So it's just like anything else, it's balance, right? If you're becoming so obsessed with the way you look and being in the gym and promoting it, that it's taking away from the other parts of your life, your work, your family, your social life, that can be an unhealthy thing too.
Did you ever work for a big corporation gym? Equinox,
no.
24 like that? Okay.
No, so the yard is my first
That's your first
experience
endeavor
in the industry.
Okay.
Yep.
So back when you were in your football days, you were probably lifting 6-7 days a week.
Yeah, we were lifting a lot for sure.
So it's one thing being in an environment where you're with a bunch of football players where we have to lift because this is essentially our job. If we don't lift, we don't perform on the field. And if we don't perform on the field, the team probably is going to lose.
Right.
Or at least not do very, very well. It can be inundating for somebody that doesn't know how to work out. You go to the gym and it's all this equipment. What does this do? What does this do? I see that person doing this, but then I can't do this. And it's overwhelming. And I'm sure that people who are brand new to the gym or just who aren't familiar with all the equipment can get overwhelmed easier. So do you think about that, or was that in your mind when you were designing the yard? Like, how can I make this simple so somebody that maybe goes twice a week doesn't feel like they're getting overwhelmed with something?
Yeah, I think intimidation is definitely a thing. And with our equipment, we're unlike any other gym. Many big commercial gyms, it's rows of machines that are not being used. And if you kind of show up to those gyms without a plan, you can kind of putz around and do some leg extensions and bicep curls and call it a day, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas at our space, because you have a reservation, because it's an hour long, and because you are reserving a specific area, you don't have so much equipment at your disposal where you can be effective without having a plan, But the other side of that is, the equipment is intimidating if you've never used it. It's a squat rack with a barbell and a bunch of bumper plates. So if you don't have experience power Olympic lifting, that can be intimidating and it can be dangerous. So one thing we're trying to do with some of our group classes and some other things we're doing is trying to promote the benefits of using that type of equipment, but also teach people how to use it. And that's not only just like the actual lifts, that's adjusting the rack,
Yeah.
So, taking the barbell off and adjusting the pins. Those things are things that a lot of people haven't done.
So if someone were to walk into one of the pods now, what are they going to see when they walk in? Is it going to be everyone has a squat rack, there's a bench press there, there's a whole rack of dumbbells? What do they have in each of the individual pods?
They're all exactly the same. So it's a squat rack with a platform, a bench, a barbell, over 300 pounds of bumper plates. And then in San Francisco, we have a set of adjustable dumbbells at every pod.
Oh.
So if you're doing, if you're following a powerlifting program, you pretty much have everything you need at your pod. No risk of, not having access to something because someone else is. You should be good. And then with your reservation, you get shared access to cardio equipment. So we have rowing machines, air bikes. We have a ski erg. And then we have a shared area where we have a strip of turf, a sled, battle ropes, tires, plyo boxes.
That's all in the common area.
That's all in the common area.
Gotcha.
So like a lot of people will start their workout down on the turf and warm up down there and then do their lift at the pod and then finish up down on the turf to do conditioning stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the group classes are all in the main area right there.
So we have some boot camp style classes that we do down on the turf, but we also have a barbell class that we actually lock down 2 pods for that.
Gotcha. Okay. So who's mostly coming to the classes? Is it, can you quantify, are they millennials? Are they people that just live in the neighborhood? Are you getting people coming from outside the area because they heard about this concept and it just appeals to them? What are you seeing?
I mean, for the most part, on the member side, people live nearby and typically fall in the, mid to late 20s into their 30s. That's the member side, and those are typically the people who are taking our classes. We have 2 other user types. There's our personal trainers, right? They probably fall into a same age bracket, but they're traveling from all over the city.
Yeah.
And then their clients. So their clients that our more established trainers have brought with them, again, come from all over the city.
Got it.
When you have a good relationship with your personal trainer, you'll follow them wherever they go.
Pretty much.
And then we've helped many of our trainers grow their businesses by introducing them to new clients. And those are folks who typically live in the neighborhood.
And this is how old again, this gym?
Our SF location opened in December of 2021, so a year and a half.
A year and a half, all right. In that year and a half, what's been the thing that you enjoy most about it? Like, this is something that I really think that, or that I've seen that I really like that this gym is doing. What's been some of your biggest challenges with it? They're like, we could do this better, or I could fix. What do you see about there?
The thing I enjoy the most is on the trainer side, I work closely with a bunch of our trainers on everything outside of their training sessions. So helping them to build their business. So kind of similar to what I was doing at A3 Ventures, the incubator, I'm surrounded by 20 or 30 entrepreneurs every day, right? Mm-hmm. So helping them to establish, maintain, and grow their businesses has been amazing. And to see that play out in over the course of time has been awesome. So we have a few trainers who started their journey as independent, operators with us. And now we're some of the most busy trainers at our gym. They've grown over the last 6 or 9 months through some of the strategies we've shared with them, but also some of the clients we've introduced them to. So that's been super fulfilling, building those relationships with those guys and just helping them thrive. On the member side, I was actually just talking to someone about this today. What I enjoy most is, when I'm there at the front desk and someone is walking in for their session, typically they have their AirPods in, they're kind of beelining to their pod, and there may be cases where they don't even acknowledge me at the front desk, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine. Our whole thing is like, we have a community here if you want it. If not, like, do your thing. We're not gonna get in your way. When I was training at commercial gyms, I belonged to an Equinox for years in Boston. I was the dude that had his headphones in and didn't talk to a soul. Like, that was my time, And if people want that, that's totally fine. But we also want to give them a place where they can create friendships and build community and meet other people if that, that's something they want. But in many of those cases, that same person who walks in and doesn't even acknowledge me at the front desk, on their way out, they're glowing, they're like, their disposition is entirely different. So it's so cool to see that in the matter of, 45 minutes or 60 minutes, they can be a totally different person with a totally different outlook and a totally different attitude. And I think that's the power of fitness. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the mental health stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's, again, looking good and feeling good is awesome, but the mental health benefits, I think, are just as, if not, more important.
Right. So what do you think that you could do better in the gym? Where do you say, okay, this is a new concept, we haven't seen it around, here's what it's doing good, here's what I want to see more of? Or is it's so good that we need to build it out more? What's your challenge with the business?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many things that we still need to solve for. Like, I definitely haven't figured it all out. One of the things I struggle with is, up until recently, it's been just me in terms of, I haven't had any employees up until literally last week. The list of things that needs to be done is impossibly long, and trying to figure out priorities and executing on what's most important without burning out has been really, really difficult. And now that I have someone that I can, hopefully partner with on some of these tasks, like that makes a huge difference. But the biggest challenge is like using your judgment to figure out from that impossibly long list of things to do, what should we focus on? Because depending on who you talk to, problem A may be, a huge issue for that trainer, client, or member. But you got to step back and look at the entire community and figure out if that's a pervasive issue for everyone. So that's the thing that keeps me up at night is like, am I working on the right things? Because there's no one, when you're in business for yourself, there's no one to tell you whether you are or not.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been a challenge.
I mean, I bring that up because you're not the only person I've had here who is in the personal training business, whether they have their own gym or they're personal trainers or they work at a big corporation. And I'm always curious to find out where the challenges are, because these are the things that probably other trainers and other owners are going through. And they're like, you know what? The rent's coming due and I don't have enough members and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, or is it my equipment? Is it the location? Whatever it is. And a lot of them, I'm kind of finding out a lot of it's the same issues. Like, oh, is it the fees that I'm charging, or is it the equipment? Is it the message? Whatever it is. I had somebody on here once just tell me he's been focusing on his message as to why his gym exists, because he understands that, he puts his name out there. He's competing with all the big names out there who have all this money to spend on marketing and the flashiest equipment. They're getting LeBron James on their product because they know that people are going to go follow him. And he's like, I have to just hunker down and focus on my core group of clients here, because those are the ones that are going to help drive me forward. And it's like, I think I was talking to you about this earlier before when we were setting up. It's getting people to believe in your message and then saying, all right, they're the ones who are going to go promote me to other people. When they say, hey, I got a buddy who's looking for a gym. I have no idea where to start. Do I go 24-hour because they're the biggest one? Do I go to Equinox because they're the fanciest one? What do I do? Well, let me tell you something about Joe. We have he's got this gym called The Yard. Here's what the whole thing is about. I go there. I love it. Here's why I like it. Oh, okay. Well, if you say so and I trust you, I want to go listen. I want to go to that gym and check it out. And so I found that with a lot of people, they've been hunkering down on their core clients and their core group of people that they're using to help sell the gym, because it's a task just trying to get your name out there in an industry, because Even the people who want to work out, they're like, do I go to you? Do I go to this guy?
Right.
This guy's got a million Instagram followers, so he must be better, quote unquote. Or that gym is down the street, so it's got to be easier. What do you do? What are your thoughts on that in terms of your clientele, your core clientele?
Yeah, the most powerful marketing channel there is word of mouth, right? And I'm actually seeing this play out in my own life personally, but also with the yard, the power of recommendations from people you trust. As we get busier and as our attention spans narrow, we don't have the time, bandwidth, or resources to research every little decision we're making, right? So if someone you know and respect recommends something to you, they've kind of done the work for you, and you'll take their word for it and check it out. So we've definitely leaned very heavily on word of mouth, as you have with your podcast, because it's free. It's free and it's powerful. I think I see a lot of people who, when they hit challenging times with their business, default to wanting to throw a few $100 or $1,000 at an online campaign, whether it's Google search or something on social media. And the thought is like, that's a way to maximize my audience. That's kind of my silver bullet. But what I'm learning is there is no silver bullet. No single initiative or campaign you take on is going to bring you to where your business wants to be. In the same way with working out, right? Like, I'm not going to do some workout for a week or even, a couple months and see an overnight transition. All this stuff takes years, if not decades, to get to an optimal level. And even when you're there, there's new challenges and new hurdles to overcome. So yeah, I think patience, trusting your process, offering a really good service and delighting your existing customers is far and away the most productive way to grow a business.
It is. And it's really because in trying times, like if we get another downturn or if this economy continues to go down, people are like, tech people are losing their jobs left and right, or that's the perception anyway.
Yep.
Nobody wants to spend the money as much as they did back in the pandemic days. So how do you get them to actually want to still believe in you and be loyal to you?
Right.
So there's this interesting chart right there. It's called the law of diffusion of innovation. Really, it's a concept that came up in the 60s. The idea being that all populations sift across the standard deviation here. You have the population here who are the laggards, who are the people that will not do anything because unless they have zero choice. You have the majority of people here, early and late majority, early adopters and your innovators. So these people here on this side of the spectrum here, these are the ones that when everything's brand new, they want to try it.
Right.
The first to buy the iPhone, the first to go to the brand new gym, the first to buy the brand new program. That's these people here.
Right.
But then in business, a lot of times what we do is we focus on the majority because that's where all the money is. That's where all the people are.
Right.
And the problem is, and I've been in this category several times, we get very cynical here. We don't really trust people. We get into that whole "what's in it for me" thing. Right. Oh, is it on sale? Do I get a return if I don't like it? Do I get a bonus if I bring somebody on? And then those are the people that we have to keep marking our prices down to get them to want to keep going in.
Right.
And then it's like the whole ClassPass thing.
Oh boy.
It's like you can reduce your cost so much, but it doesn't make me want to go back to those gyms anymore just because I got a better deal. Because if I didn't like my experience there, it's like, well, what else is going to keep me there?
Right.
But then by focusing on your early adopters and your innovators, the people that believe in your message first, once you reach a tipping point, which is like 15 or 16% of the market penetration, that's when everything starts to tip and it falls in line because these people won't try it until these people did it first. And then now that most of these people are like, well, geez, everybody else is doing it. Well, so why not?
Right.
iPhone's a great example like that. I didn't want to buy the iPhone in the beginning because I'm this whole thing, whatever. And it was only on AT&T. So now that it's out there so much, I was like, you know what? Everybody's got it. They're all talking about it. So if you guys trust it and it's been around for 6 months or a year, fine, I'll get into it.
Right.
And then it just keeps going after that.
Right.
But it's that focus on the early adopters and the innovators, the people who believe in your message first. They understand why you're doing it. And then they're the ones who go tell everybody else here that these people trust over here, hey, you got to try the place out.
Totally.
It's amazing how much that actually works. Tech's a little bit different because of all the venture capital and how that skews everything. But for the most part, just building a business, it's like, do you have the patience to wait on that core audience?
Right.
So when you talk to your core audience, like, what do they tell you about what they're looking for, why they come to you in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, we do have those 3 user types, right? Members versus trainers clients. So the value proposition, differs across the 3 slightly. But when we initially went to market, the space was designed primarily, if not exclusively, for independent trainers. But we opened it up to members because we figured, why not? But now, 70% of the business is trainers. I expect them to continue to be, the primary driver of growth and the majority of revenue. But, it's not an insignificant part of the business for membership. So I think the value we're providing there is like, people who are coming from a commercial gym, there's typically 1 or 2 squat racks for hundreds of people. If you have a program you're following, if you're an experienced power lifter, that's typically the most important part of your workout, right? And that's where you want to spend the most time. So to feel rushed because someone's waiting behind you or to be waiting for access to that equipment is super frustrating. So we're solving for that pain point for sure. And, that's one that I've experienced firsthand. So, I think it's been cool to be able to serve two communities or 2 user types. I think that's been really cool.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in the gym and somebody takes 2 of the barbells or 2 of the barbells, and then they put them over there on the squat rack, and then here I am trying to use the bench press, and then it's over there because I gotta do my deadlifts, and then I gotta go to the squat.
Right.
Why don't you choose the same bar because you need a rest in between, and then give me that bar.
Right.
And it doesn't click for a lot of people.
Right.
So it's amazing how just when you rent your pod, everything is there. You don't have to share with anybody.
Exactly.
Or maybe even your female client, the last thing they want to do is go to the gym and have all the dudes stare at them.
Right.
So they get their own pod. It's like, hey, I can work on my own thing. I don't have to worry about anybody looking at me the way I don't want them to look at, and I can get my workout in.
Totally. Yeah. I think we've all had horror stories of what you described, right? Someone just not having any courtesy when they're at the shared squat rack. And when we initially launched, actually a big majority of our business was females. And I think it was exactly that, right? They had their own space, and our pods aren't, private in that, you don't have your own room, you're often working out next to someone. But it is, an environment where, especially because, you have an hour, and that's it. So you're more efficient, and you don't necessarily have people kind of lingering around and observing you or creeping on you because, they're going through their workout as well. So
do you ever ask them, hey, thanks for coming to the yard. What brought you here in the first place, to kind of hear from them?
Yeah. I always ask like how you heard about us. And it's a mix of, we saw your Instagram or, we Googled you. We just did a whole revamp of our website, and everything's kind of optimized for search. So we've seen a big uptick in interest and in leads from that.
Have you heard a lot of the stories about, dude, thank you for having this whole program here, because you don't know how frustrating it is. Like when we talk about the horror stories that I have to go to 24-hour and deal with that.
Yeah.
Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool because there have been a bunch of cases where, I haven't been at the gym and someone made a reservation and they tried it out themselves. Minimal interaction between us beyond like emails. Mm-hmm. And to see them convert and to continue to come, is cool. It's like, of course, like I would have loved to have been there to walk them through and explain how it works and collect any feedback and answer any questions. But it's also cool that, someone could figure it out for themselves, and enjoy it so much that they continue to use it and have been for months.
And you do your own classes too, right?
I don't train. No.
Okay.
Yep. So my whole thing is like I'm trying to empower our trainers who are there. So any sort of client leads we get, we distribute across our existing rosters based on fit and availability.
Mm-hmm. So how many trainers work with you?
In San Francisco, depending on the month, anywhere from 20 to 30. And then in Mill Valley, which we just opened on April 1st, we have around 5 trainers.
5 in Mill Valley and 30 in San Francisco. Wow, are they mostly the ones who live in the city, or they just prefer to come to San Francisco?
Yeah, I don't know. We have a few people who are coming from the East Bay, but for the most part, everyone's local.
What's been their biggest commendation of you to say, Joe, this is why I like coming here? What's been the biggest theme that you've heard from them?
Yeah, I think the ability to just hunker down in one area and have all the equipment you need is a huge time save for folks, and takes a lot of the stress out of their days. Being a trainer is a tough business. Like I've learned that, back-to-back sessions for 7 or 8 straight hours it's a lot. I mean, physically you're picking up weights and moving them around. Mentally, many clients treat their trainers as if they're therapists, right? They're kind of dumping their emotional baggage on them. And despite that, trainers have to stay upbeat and lively and kind of act as a sponge for all that. So it's just a lot. So I hope that in providing a space and taking out the guesswork of whether or not they'll have access to equipment and whether or not they'll have the space they need to do their session, I hope that that takes one less worry off of their plate, so they can really focus on what they do, because like I said, it's very challenging.
I've noticed that the majority, between the trainers that I've talked to and who their clientele is and who the repeat businesses are, who the people that keep spending money on them, I've learned that a lot of the main clients that they have that they keep coming back to them probably aren't the ones that are in the shape that they want to be in. But what they're getting benefit from is that their trainer understands their issues. They understand what they're going through. They understand the problems. Like you said, more of a therapist almost than an actual physical trainer, because some people just say, hey, I just need to get away from work. I've been in that office 12 hours today. I want to go talk to Sally or Joe, my personal trainer, and just get all the stuff off of my chest about what I've been dealing with. Oh, while I'm there, I'll do some bicep curls or I'll do some squats.
Right.
But you can always tell that it's almost like the trainers aren't selling physical transformation as much as they might be selling just the mental relief, the mental health side of it. And those tend to be a lot of the people that keep coming back. And it's like, if you understand that that's what your clients are really there for, to be able to bridge that gap and say, how can I help satisfy the mental health issues that they're going with the best to my ability, but also get them to work out? Have you seen that transition?
Totally, yeah. I mean, it comes back to what we were saying earlier, the mental health benefits and the power of community. Like, I think obviously, physical progress, getting stronger, getting fitter is really important. And, I think you definitely see that with folks who have been with a trainer for a long period of time, but at a certain point, it's more than that. It's part of their routine, it's part of their community, and it's part of them living a wholesome, healthy life versus just getting bigger biceps.
Yeah, because people want to feel good. They don't surprisingly, you might think this way, but it's less about I want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club or Arnold back in Mr. Olympia days,
right?
And more about I just want to feel good with who I am and the body that I have. If that means I have 20% body fat versus 8%, so I can't see my abs as much, but you know what? I feel better than what I was before that.
Right.
That's all I really want. Or the client that comes in and says, you know what? I'm 75 years old. I don't care about lifting a specific amount of weight, but you know what? I want to be able to hold my grandchild again. Because right now I can't pick him up or I can't take him to the park. I lose energy, and I just want to be able to do that. And if you can get me there, that's going to make me satisfied as a customer or a client of the physical trainers. Because that's really what a lot of people want. It's just to get to that point, though, where they can enjoy their lives, not so much being on the cover of Bodybuilding magazine.
Right.
And it's like, I think you'd probably see more of the gung-ho people, the ones who want to get like the ripped abs and the big biceps at like a specific type of gym where everybody's there to look a specific way.
Right.
Whereas like your gym, they're not coming in saying, yeah, I want 18-inch biceps, 18-inch guns. Like, no, actually, I enjoy the trainer that I'm with. I enjoy the fact that I have the privacy pretty much in the pod that I have. Like, this speaks to me more than the big corporation gyms where, yeah, the equipment's nicer and the music, it maybe is more, pumping me up. They're playing Godsmack or whatever, but it doesn't, maybe you feel intimidated going there.
Right.
What else have you seen from your experience?
It's interesting because when we first launched, I expected, a bunch of people like me to be patrons, whether they're clients or direct members. Is like, I pretty much designed my dream gym, so I was expecting people who were maybe former athletes or people with a lot of experience with powerlifting and bodybuilding. And honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, we have our fair share of that, but for the most part, it's general population. It's people who I don't think necessarily have any aspirations to be on the cover of Men's or Women's Health, but they just want to be a part of something great and they want to feel good. And, I'm happy to be able to provide a place for them to be able to do that.
So why do you think that is? Have you asked people in the community that you live with, hey, any reason why, just kind of trying to figure out how to build a business, and what have you been hearing from that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the makeup of the neighborhood, demographically. I really don't know what's driving it. But we're very inclusive. Anyone is welcome at our space, regardless of experience levels. So I like to think that we have a very inviting culture, where people can feel comfortable being themselves. I think that's kind of what you're seeing play out.
Well, you talked about earlier about the whole community aspect.
Yep.
And certain gyms have a certain culture, like Muscle Beach and, down in Venice Beach. Like, you go there when you want to look a specific way.
Right.
And all the guys know when you go down there, hey, I want to look like this guy and this guy, so I'm going to go train with them and kind of pick up on what they're doing. And,
right.
If I can kind of hang in with that crowd, that's going to be what I want to do. And powerlifters may not want to go to the yard because they want to be surrounded with other powerlifters. And if they're all at Equinox, it's like, well, I guess I got to pay $300 a month to go there because that's who I want to look at. I got a couple of friends who are in the bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding thing, and I asked them about that one day. And they're like, yeah, I have to surround myself with other people who are doing what I'm doing, because if I don't, I've caught myself not pushing myself to where I need to be at.
Right.
Because if I'm with a bunch of other bodybuilders who are all trained for the same kind of competition and we're all doing arms day, we're helping each other out with a specific thing.
Right.
Whereas if I go to 24-hour fitness, like at 2 a.m. in the morning, because that's the only time I have, like there's like 3 people there, and I'm like, all right, I kind of lose the motivation. Right. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You kind of have to be surrounded by the element that you feel is going to help get you to where you want to get to.
Right.
And if your profession is bodybuilding, well, you're going to be in there however many hours a week. So I can understand why you'd want to surround yourself with an environment that's going to be conducive to that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're the reflection of the people we hang around with most, right? So I can totally see, for someone who's, competitive bodybuilding, wanting to be surrounded by those types of people.
But the thing about it, there's not as many of those as there are average everyday people.
Right.
So it's like the fact that you're offering some that the average everyday, average Joe guy can say, this is more inviting for me. Like, I want to go there because I don't want to go to get intimidated at Muscle Beach because it's closer to home or whatever.
Right.
It's like, no, this is actually, there's no judgment. There was that. There's that one, it's the gym that's all purple, Planet Fitness.
Yep.
And they make this big thing about no ego.
Judgment-free zone.
Yeah,
yep.
If you drop the weights, apparently they kick you out.
The lunk alarm goes off, yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. It's like, okay, well, if that's true, that's not a place that I want to go, because if I'm lifting heavy that day and I set the weights down a little too aggressively, not slam them, but a little too aggressively, someone's going to come up to me and say, nah, we don't do that here. Like, well, then this isn't the place for me then.
Right,
if you guys are going to be that sensitive about it, then it's just not the gym for me.
Right.
But the clientele that they're going for doesn't want that around. I'm like, okay, I get it. it's not my gym.
Right.
Fair enough. But if it's a gym that works for you, then hey, different community.
Right. Having an environment where, I wasn't turning anyone away and trying to welcome anyone, and just create a place where everyone felt comfortable. Like, I don't know how much of that was design or it's just more like my personality, but I never went in and intentionally tried to create a culture for meatheads or former athletes or anything like that. We opened up shop, and as people trickled in, I try to be genuine. I try to be myself. I explain the concept, explain what we're going for, and try to offer something that, that solves a problem. So, we're definitely not if you've never done any sort of barbell work in your life, I think you'll have a hard time at our gym, at least as a member going on your own. So I think we do serve a subsegment of the overall industry, but I think it's just really cool and refreshing to see that, we are very much serving the general population, because I think that speaks to A, the problem we're solving, and B, the fact that I think the public is generally coming around to the benefits of resistance training, and historically there were theories that, for women, weightlifting would make you bulky, or, certain expectations around what happens when you start weightlifting. And I think the mainstream's starting to come around on that. And not only the physical benefits, but the mental benefits, which we've discussed extensively. And then this whole idea of longevity is really important, right? The ability to live a longer, healthier, more fulfilling life. Resistance training consistently and being active has a huge role in that. So It's been cool to see.
This is something that we are trying to figure out now in our generation, because our parents and grandparents didn't have to deal with this. I told the story of my dad once to somebody that, he had me when he was 35 years old. And if you see pictures of him when he was 35 years old, he looked like what I would have thought that most guys looked like a Homer Simpson, loosen the hair, he's getting the beer belly, he doesn't know how to dress, but that's a separate thing right there. He just looked like a typical American dad. Worked at a factory, and then I had my kid at 35, and then when I was growing up, I thought 35 was old. Okay, this is what you're supposed to look like at 35, kind of like the years are going on in you. And here I am at 40, and I'm like, if I compared myself at 40 to my dad at 40, it'd be night and day.
Totally.
And one of the things that I talk about is that he didn't know anything about working out. Nobody knew about the stuff that we were eating for the longest time post World War II. Like, all that stuff is in the food that we eat. What does it do? I don't know, but we're eating it. And now it's coming to light. All the stuff we've been eating has been affecting our body in one way.
Totally.
This is why organic might be better than non-organic in specific areas. This is why you need to go to the gym. You're not trying to be Arnold necessarily, but this is why you have to keep your body moving, because as you age and you don't use your muscles, they just atrophy.
Totally.
So all these things that we're learning now to live a healthier life that our parents, at least my parents, just didn't know.
Right.
I remember trying to ask him about that, and my mom was like, "Yeah, we just didn't know. No one told us. It wasn't a thing. We just got married, had kids. That's what everybody does, and then we just sort of roll with the punches. The lifespan, they probably thought they would live till about 70, 75, and that was just normal. Right. And here we are now in a day and age where we know what we're eating, or we know a better idea what we're eating and working out, and we're pushing that to 90, 100 years old. By the time in 60 years or so, when we get closer to that age, it's going to be probably normal for people to live over 100.
Right.
And it's a totally different way of thinking, because now we have to sort of expand what our expectations of life are. Right. And you mentioned something specifically with that I wanted to ask you is, what problem are you specifically trying to solve with the yard, now that we've talked a lot about what the whole concept is?
Yeah, I think it's shifted a little, right? Like originally we were focused exclusively on trainers, and empowering them. And that's definitely continues to be a large focus, but with this side of the business for members that's bigger than I ever expected, the mission has shifted a little bit, in that we're just trying to offer the most efficient workout destination ever, right? Because by having your own space, by knowing exactly what equipment you're going to have, and by having an hour-long session, you're kind of creating an environment where you can be super efficient with your time, which I think has really solved the need, and has been awesome to watch kind of play out.
Yeah, because most people, going back to what's on about my dad, is that they just want to feel good, but they don't know how to. Right. And now that we know that we can live longer and healthier, that 40 is like the new 25 or whatever it is. At least I like to think it's the new 25. Yeah. That we don't have to put ourselves in this sort of time frame of, if I don't get in shape by a certain time, then I'm done. It's like, no, you can keep on going. Totally. And it's getting that message out to people to say, you know what, this is what you've been told, but here's what we offer over here, or here's what you can do to help your own body get into the best shape it can be given your specific lifestyle. And the good news about social media, for all its challenges, is that you have the opportunity to see how other people are doing things better, and trying to sometimes get that through to a lot of people. We were talking about earlier about how, I think we're talking off camera about this, about how a lot of people tend to make excuses why they can't do certain things. Right. I can't get to the gym because it's too far away, or it costs too much, or I don't know how to lift, so therefore I'm not going to do it. And they just sort of live with what they have. Yep. Or I can't save money, or I can't invest because nobody ever told me how to do it, and it's too difficult to learn. So I'm just going to keep going in this sort of repetition that I've been doing because that's what my parents did and their grandparents did. Right. And it's really come to a point now where I'm trying to get to people that you do have control over a lot of aspects of your life. You may not be able to control certain things happening, but how you react to it is what you can control. So if you are somebody that says, I know I need to get in shape, but I don't know the first thing to do, and it's just too exhausting to figure it out. You got to take that first step to say, where do I start out with? Right. Where do I go to a place or community that I know is going to be inviting and actually show me how I can get to a specific goal and whatnot.
Right.
So, it's a great thing to be able to have out there as an option for people to say, this is the type of gym that's going to work for me. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, the self-victimization can kind of become a vicious cycle, right? Where, I mean, bad shit happens all the time. Like, that's a thing. And having bad luck is, it happens to all of us. But how you respond is what dictates your outcomes, right? There are things that are outside of your control, but you can always control the response. So, my whole thing is like, whether it's work or fitness or whatever it may be, I'm never going to stop. I'm going to do a little bit every day, and I'm just going to continue, grinding it out, because I have this fear of falling out of the routine and getting to the point where I'm like, oh shit, like I have a ton of room to make up for all this lost time. So I would rather kind of chip away slowly yet surely, and see compounded growth versus some sort of, overnight viral sensation. And I think for people who have fallen off track or who have had some sort of negative experience and find themselves not where they want to be financially, physically, emotionally, whatever it may be, they see where they want to be or where they used to be and where they are now and are intimidated by that gap, right? And it doesn't help that they go to social media and, there's some reel that shows, how to get a six pack in 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. And it's like,
how frustrating is that to you specifically with your history with football and training, and then to see social media and some expectations that people are given to others? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, so I was off social media for years, and came back on to launch the gym because you really can't be in the industry without it. That's how we're building credibility and putting our name out and gaining awareness. But yeah, it's frustrating. I think it's I feel for people who are have hit a point where they're struggling and they're exposed to that and discouraged by it. So what I always tell people, who maybe it's their first session at the gym and they're telling me about how, and I hear this a lot, is like, yeah, with COVID, I totally fell out of my routine. Like I gained 20, 40, 60 pounds. Like I'm trying to get back on track. The thing I say to them is like, dude, you're in the right place. Like you came here, you're doing all the right things. Now just keep coming. It's really as simple as that. And, kind of stacking those habits and building wins, is really the only way to see progress, because those overnight successes are few and far between. And I think we're exposed to them all the time through social media, but I think oftentimes they're exaggerated or straight up fabricated, right? Those overnight successes. And what we don't see is what happened between point A and point B. And so, yeah, I think, and I forgot who said this. I think it might have been Bill Gates. We overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 10, right? So It's like, we have this desire to see results immediately, and we all lack patience. Like, I'm the worst. I'm super impatient, and it's something I'm working on. But showing up day in, day out, and chipping away at your goals over the course of the long term, you'll be shocked by the progress you made when you look back on it. I all the time, if I look back on, going back to social media, on Instagram, you can see stories from a year ago to the day, right? And I look at some of the things we were doing and some of the content we were putting out, and I'm like, damn, we've come a long way, and it's always refreshing to take that look back. So what I tell people is, don't benchmark yourself against the Instagram influencer or any other person or your friend who's doing extremely well. Look at where you were a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and benchmark against that. And as long as you're continuing to grow, you're going in the right path.
What's been your personal challenge in fitness? Did you have that time, whether in football or sometime in between then and now, where you're like, I had this big injury, or I could have given up, or the world came down on me? And then how did you get through that?
Yeah, I've been, knocking wood, I've been lucky not to have any significant injuries, which, I don't know how many of my teammates can say the same. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's been, I started lifting when I was in, for football in 7th grade, and I literally haven't stopped. Like, I don't know if I've taken more than, 2 weeks off in the last however many years it's been. And, there have definitely been ebbs and flows where I've been more committed or less committed. And, getting back into the gym after a couple weeks off is always more difficult than if I've been doing it consistently. But I don't know what it is, but something in the back of my mind is terrified of this idea of like slipping into complacency and getting to the point where it's like, holy shit, it's been a month and I haven't worked out, or, it's been several months, and so I'm terrified of falling into that. So with that, I just try to chip away at, and this is it for everything in my life, with the business as well. Like, I have a hard time taking weekends off because I'm worried if I'm not responding immediately to anyone who reaches out, like I'm going to lose that opportunity. So yeah, this whole idea of like slipping into complacency is a big fear of mine that I'm constantly battling.
We'll join the club on that one because I've sort of hit that mark probably in the last couple of years. And it's nothing against anybody that I know, any of my friends or people, how they live their lives. It's, you have to deal with what's best for you. I've just noticed what I've seen is if you fall into complacency, maybe think of guys our age, for example. If you fall into complacency, let's say you're married, you have kids, and you have a job that pays all the bills, and you're like, as long as I make the money to pay the bills, to take care of the kids, the wife and kids, then I'm good. And then you're like, well, if I hit that point, then what else is there to do? Do I want to get a new job? Do I want to get a promotion? Do I need to make myself more in shape? And then my fear is, because I saw it with my dad, is that you just become that, what else is there for me? I've checked all the boxes. There's no need to get better.
Right.
And then I've learned growing older that you have to continuously get better, because if you don't, then you fall into that complacency mindset. And then the next thing you know, you're like so many people that I've seen, unfortunately, who get addicted to pills, or maybe they get laid off from an industry that they've known all their lives, and now their job is gone. They're like, well, what do? I have no idea where to go from here. I never continue to invest in my own self, so I don't know what the next step is.
Right.
So I'm with you on that it's a fear of mine to not get into that, which is why this whole venture here, I had no idea about audio, video. This whole setup was all foreign to me a couple years ago.
Right.
But it was something that I wanted to do, and I said, how can I make this happen? How can I build this whole thing here with just me essentially from the beginning, to put it all together and put it out there? And it's a lot it's a lot to do.
Right.
It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of time management skills, but it keeps me going now.
Right.
Whereas if I didn't have that and I just have my normal day job, if you will, it's what do I do with my off time?
Yep.
And then you see a lot of people in my industry specifically, they fill that time by working a lot of overtime, which means now you're at the job site more, which means you're taking on more stress, and the money that you think is benefiting you either goes to buy more toys that you don't need, or you've committed yourself to other financial obligations and now you have to keep working.
Right.
So you sort of get in this weird repetitive cycle where you're just going with the flow, you're going with the rat race and haven't had time to get out of it.
Right.
Which is like I said, it's been one of the biggest fears of mine too, that whole complacency thing.
Right.
Is that kind of how you think of it as well?
Yeah. And it's like, there are days where I'm like, I wish I could just shut down and chill out, but I think when you're in business for yourself, that's just kind of the mindset you have to have. It's a constant battle, and it's a long-term one, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, and I mean, the other thing is, I don't have any kids. Do you have kids?
No kids.
I
can do this because I don't have any
exactly.
kids.
So I understand that my friends who have reached that point, that adds a whole new wrinkle and a whole new responsibility. And I don't mean to speak as if I have all the answers. But to me, it's for me, when I ultimately do have kids, I want to be someone that is setting a good example for my children, right? In taking care of myself mentally and physically. But also when I haven't exercised, or it's not just exercise, it's doing things that keep me engaged and challenged. If I'm not doing those things, I'm not my best self, right? And I'm not someone that anyone wants to be around. So, selfishly, I think it's important to find those, that time, whether it's you need to wake up earlier or maybe do it after you put the kids down for bed. And again, I haven't reached this point in my life yet, so maybe I shouldn't say anything, but I think it's something that I'm going to continue chipping away at because, again, because of that fear of slipping into a place I don't want to be.
Yeah, and I'm never going to tell anybody, you're never going to tell anybody, this is the way it has to be done, because I don't know what works for everybody else. I know what works for me,
Right.
and how I get through the daily grind, and you know what works for you, but everybody else has to make their own choice. And for some people, it might be better to say, I like the complacency lifestyle because it works for what I want, and it's working. So I have no need to change. But like, yeah, you do what you got to do. As long as you're not hurting anybody else or affecting anybody else's lives, and you're satisfied and happy with your life, hey, it doesn't matter to me what you do as long as you're happy doing it. It's the people that are not happy with it, and then they take that frustration out on everybody else.
Right.
And that's where it becomes an issue. Okay, now you're affecting other people's lives. So we got to get you put in check on there. If you want to figure out how to do it, we'll give you examples of what's worked for us. You decide if you want to take them or not.
Yep.
And with the whole mental health thing, it's become a big issue.
Totally.
In the last couple of years, whether you want to blame social media or blame the work culture or the woke culture, that too, no matter what you want to blame with it, it's become an issue that we're trying to figure out how to deal with.
Right.
And granted, all the problems that we deal with in this country are nothing like some of these other countries where, you say one thing wrong and automatically you're out.
Right.
So when people think of it that way, it's like, oh yeah, it could be worse somewhere else.
Totally.
But it's still something that we're trying to figure out how to help people with the mental health thing. And a lot of it is just, for me, what I've seen is the biggest factor with that has been the finances from the very beginning. You get so inundated and caught up with, buying things that maybe you shouldn't buy. You have to pay it back somehow.
Yep.
Which means you're working longer, which means you may not have time to go develop yourself in other areas.
Right.
And it becomes a snowball.
Totally.
And I think you probably see it in the same thing in the fitness world too. Or how about actually in your whole business ventures from doing real estate? Have you seen a similar thing to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, like focusing on your own growth versus comparing yourself to others, like this whole keeping up with the Joneses and trying to project a lifestyle, on social media for appearances is obviously not a healthy way to live. But I do agree. And one thing I've seen and talked to folks at the gym about is how some of these challenges, whether it's social media or phone addiction or materialism, how it's trickling down to our kids and the younger generation. And that's what freaks me out is, we have a coach over at the Yard who trains. He's a high school sports coach, and he told me that some of the kids at school are literally starting to hunch over because they're so, glued to their phones, and they're walking in the hallway and bumping into each other because they're glued to their phones. And like, I get it. I mean, I got my phone propped up here, like I'm just as bad as anyone else. When I was a kid and before we had all these responsibilities and weren't glued to our screens, like those are some of the more happy, carefree times, So it's sad to think about kids who are at that age and dealing with some of the same stressors and challenges that you really shouldn't have to deal with until you're an adult with real responsibilities. So,
with that, it kind of goes back to what we didn't know. Remember how I told you how my parents didn't know about the food they were eating or how important it was to work out? They just didn't know.
Right.
With our generation of parents, we've been kind of seeing a similar thing. All these new toys came out, the iPhone, the iPad, and they've done wonders for parents who are like, I need to take care of A, B, and C, but little Billy here is screaming, okay, let me get the iPad and he can go play Fruit Ninja or Angry Birds or whatever it is. And it solved the problem, and then no one really thinks about, okay, 20 years, is this going to matter or not? If I'm getting used to giving them a screen, then, is that going to come back to bite me later? Or are they going to get through it the way I got through it, even though I was already an adult, so I could process it differently?
Right.
And it's like our industry in law enforcement. You hear about staffing issues all the time. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
It's not just what the media says. It's not just politics, although that all plays a part of it. A lot of the biggest challenge why law enforcement is having a hard time filling the ranks is because A, there's nobody who wants to be a police officer, and B, some of the people who are applying have a hard time looking somebody else looking somebody else in the eye.
Yeah.
It's down at the phone. It's if the phone tells me this, then I'm going to go over here and do that. And you forget it's a people business. You have to have social skills. You have to be confident talking to somebody face to face. And if you're like this the whole time, especially in an interview where you're looking down, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
And so as the 20-something-year-olds are trying to apply for it, that's been like the biggest challenge that agencies have said is like, we just can't get people who are even comfortable looking us in the eye. Or they're giving us the textbook answer, but they don't really understand why they're doing it.
Right.
And so, that's a bigger challenge. So the mistakes, but the decisions that some of our people, that some of the people in our generation have made, parenting through no fault of their own, 10 years ago, are starting to show up now,
Right.
and how some of these kids are being developed, and it's nobody's fault. Nobody knew. It was just a
Right.
brand new toy that we thought it's making our lives easier.
Right. Right.
And it's kind of coming back where it's like, all right, there was a cost to it that we couldn't see 10 years
Right.
ago or 15 years ago. And when did the iPhone come out? 2006. So yeah, about 14, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
They're becoming of age now.
Right.
And with the fitness industry, it's interesting because of the online portion of it and how so many trainers are going online.
Yep.
What's been your experience with that, and what are your thoughts on the whole idea of this, virtual training thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it emerged and blew up throughout the pandemic out of necessity, right? You look at Peloton, their journey up through the pandemic and to where they are now. People needed to work out and couldn't leave their houses, so the at-home fitness crew and online fitness craze kind of blew up. But I always maintain that the fitness experience is not comprehensive without the community of others and the challenge of having, equipment. So I think, working out at home solved a need and continues to solve a need from a convenience standpoint. But I think people will always ultimately want to come back to a place where they can be challenged and surrounded by people who have the same goals and ambitions as them, right? Kind of coming back to your comment about, lifting in a bodybuilding gym. So,
right.
But I think there are ways where the online stuff is here to stay. I was telling you earlier, we have a few trainers who they will reserve pods on behalf of their clients. And then their client will go in and work out while FaceTiming or Zooming with their trainer who is anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an awesome tool for trainers who historically have always had to be there, and that's a limiting factor to their growth and kind of having a nice balanced life. So it's like anything else, right? I think the pendulum swings all the way in one direction and then starts to course correct a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen that course correction, and yeah.
It's interesting because Peloton, they're not exactly in the best financial shape right now.
Right.
I don't know officially if they've gone out of business, but man, they shot up during the pandemic. They went from bikes to treadmills to both.
Yep.
And then now, last I heard, they couldn't sell a treadmill to save their own life because it's just, everybody's like, all right, I'm back at the office or I'm back at the gym, so I don't need this thing anymore. Even around here, I've seen advertisements for people selling their Peloton bike at like a fraction of the cost. They're like, no, I don't need it anymore. I'm not working out at home anymore.
Right.
Or people are leaving the city to get bigger places outside. And then it becomes, well, if I'm going to go out there, then maybe I have the space for a treadmill or a bike if I work from home. But now people are having to go back to the office. So it's, well, if I'm going to go drive to the office, I might as well go drive to, gym A, B, or C down the street because, it's just, I'm already on the road.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how some of these industries are going to change to that. Like, was it all a hype during the pandemic, or is there some sort of hybrid where it's going to branch together with the standalone gyms?
Yeah, I think, we saw a lot of, not just in fitness, we saw a lot of, virtual services blow up during the pandemic. But the reality is, like, that was a temporary situation, right? And that was, we called it the new normal, but it wasn't, right? It's past. And I think, there's a reason why, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, all that stuff skyrocketed during that time. It was because being in isolation and not being out in communities interacting with people really is not great for one's mental health. So I don't know. I always found it kind of odd that some of these companies blew up and did very well, exclusively or primarily due to the pandemic. But at the same time, it was like, it wasn't a good time for any of us. So it was like, like I said, it was, despite calling it a new normal, it was a temporary thing. So building a business or service exclusively around serving that need at that time, I think was a little short-sighted.
What does your entrepreneurial side say about that in terms of, okay, I've seen where they've done well and I've seen where the challenges were. Does this make you want to maybe try a different venture or make it hybrid with what you've already established with the yard?
Yeah, I mean, like what I just described with the hybrid, online coaching stuff, I think that's something we're doing and will continue to do. But I think, stepping back, like entrepreneurship and building a new business is very much a long game, right? So it is tempting to jump on trends that are popping up, over the short term to capitalize on those opportunities. But it kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier about judgment. It's like you got to pick and choose the things you're working on because you have limited bandwidth and resources and time. It really does come down to having good judgment and using the data at your disposal and using the team at your disposal to make sure that you're working on the right things and jumping on the right opportunities and fixing the right problems. So yeah, it's tricky. It's kind of a fine line to walk, right? Of like, what to double down on versus what to wait on. But I think having a long-term mindset is the right place to start, right? Mm-hmm. Like if approaching this problem or if, chasing down this opportunity, does this address our long-term goals and get us to where we ultimately want to be? I think that's the right place to start when thinking about that stuff.
So for all the clients you have, let's pick San Francisco, for example.
Yep.
What percentage of them do you think have been there since the very beginning versus your turnover rate now? Because every gym has some sort of a turnover rate.
Yeah. Our trainer retention is really high. We, like I said, anywhere from 20 to 30, depending on the month. I would say and I probably should know this number. I would say retention is north of 90%. Because I think, once a trainer has found a place and they've gotten comfortable and their business is steady, they don't want to go elsewhere. And when a trainer's business is steady, obviously that client base, the people they're serving is steady as well. We have seen more churn on the member side, people who are making reservations for themselves. So that's one thing we're trying to figure out is, first of all, why and how can we solve for that?
Do you ask them why? Like, do you send emails afterwards, say, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. What's going on?
Yeah.
Say, hey, is there something that we could fix or what's going through people's minds?
Yeah. I think in those situations, it's been a little challenging to get direct feedback. Often it's, I moved or I haven't been going. So, I'll be back type deal. But yeah, I think we need to do a better job of digging in deeper. And this, ego starts to come into play here, right? It's really facing the music and understanding what you're not doing well and addressing it is a tough thing. So that's something we're definitely starting to work on. But I do think, it's a high churn industry, right? I mean, for all the reasons we've discussed, getting to where you want to be physically is a long-term game. It requires a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of patience. And some people don't have that. And, whether they want to blame the gym or work or whatever circumstances, it is what it is. I think, some level of churn is inevitable with the industry. So, I think we just need to figure out if some of the churn we're seeing on the member side is, unique and specific to us and things we can address versus things that are just kind of, industry norms.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm actually surprised how many more companies don't do this, but if I either stop using a product or stop going somewhere, I'm kind of surprised that not very many of them reach out to me afterwards, an email or a text saying, hey, what's going on?
Yep.
Because if they did, I'd tell them straight up, it's either A, B, C, or D, or E.
Right.
Some of them may not want to hear it because it's like, oh, this whole time I could have been fixing this.
Right.
But, you got to check your ego. Like you said, if you know that the whole goal is to get better, then you have to be able to know, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
That's a hard thing for a lot of guys, especially to say, all right, did I screw up there? Am I doing this wrong? One thing that I've noticed on my own and why maybe I don't go back to a gym or whatnot, it's less about distance and it's less about money. For me, it's why am I going here? What is it about this gym that makes them stand out? And I always find it's the little things. Like, do you do a follow-up email afterwards? Do you have something like, do you say hi? Do you remember people's names? Do you, I'm not saying you're not doing this, I don't know.
Right.
Do you have something that makes you stick out in people's minds when they come in? There's a specific thing where I know, I don't know, I trust this person, or I trust this gym, or there's something about it, I don't know. And then when you find that you've built that, you start seeing people who are going out of their way to keep coming back.
Right.
Yeah, I move away. Yeah, I moved to Oakland or whatever, and there's 10,000 gyms by me that I can go to sooner. But I'm going to make that trip to come to Marin or San Francisco because there's something about your message that I believe in.
Yep.
There's two things that I've learned in some of the business world. There's the repeat business, and then there's loyal business. So repeat business just means I'll keep doing business with you to buy the product that you're doing. Versus loyal business means I'm willing to sacrifice a better product at a better price to continue to do business with you because there's something about your message that I believe in.
Yep.
And I've caught myself doing that a lot with some of the companies and products that I use. It's, yeah, there's a cheaper version of this. There's a faster version of it, but there's something about this company or this person that makes me want to still invest with them.
Totally.
And I'm okay with it.
Yep.
And you're right. If a lot of business owners realize that, man, it would change the game because then you're finding out people are like, I don't know. I just drove 2 hours to come to your gym from, San Jose during traffic because I wanted to.
Right.
I want to go see Joe again, or I want to go see whatever the trainers are you have, or your environment makes me feel welcome, whatever it is. Like there's always going to be something. So the little things that you can do to make yourself to stand out from others, those are the big wins right there.
Yeah, I think, and I think it comes back to community. Like people want to feel like they're a part of something bigger, and I think by having good, genuine interactions with people, like that builds that loyalty that you're describing. I've been blown away by folks, trainers, members, clients, and some of the things they've done for me without even asking. It's just like, I mean, that's those are the best moments in running the business where it's like you see someone do something or someone, does something to support you in an unsolicited way. It really strikes a chord for sure.
Yeah, it's like going back to that chart I was showing you earlier. It's so those people that believe in you already, like they're the biggest advocates because they know you or they know the gym. So when they go tell their friends and family free of charge, hey, let me tell you about this great experience I have over here that you're not going to get at a 24-hour or you're not going to get at the gym down the street. It makes a huge difference.
Right.
Even when I've gone to different ones like Rumble, or there was a couple ones that don't exist anymore because they were before the pandemic. I'm like, what's bringing me over here? Oh, it was ClassPass because I got, a specific, you buy this much, you get this many credits free. Well, I got to use them, so I'm going to try them out. And the only gym that's ever actually kept me going off of ClassPass was, I think, Rumble.
Yeah.
And the only reason why that did was because there was something different about it. It was the way that they ran their classes, their environment, a little more upbeat because I can do the boxing part with the with the weight part.
Yep.
And although I don't do it every day, maybe once a month, if that, it's like that's the one thing that's probably kept because it was different. It was a different type of environment.
It's an experience.
Exactly. But there was another place I went to where they had all the equipment. Like I forgot the name of the equipment, but it's like brand new, shiny. It still smelled like the new rubber.
Yeah.
But then the person who was running the shop was like, okay, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. It's like, okay, I can get a workout, but what else you got for me?
Right.
And I tried telling him that, but I think he didn't get it. Or it was like, no, I just get the equipment and the lighting and the music. What's the problem here, man? It's like, yeah, I get it, dude. But if you don't understand that there's something else you have to bring to the table, the non-tangibles like that, you're going to start seeing people just not showing back up. And you're like, why? Well, yeah, these are the things that set you apart.
Right. Yeah. People want to go somewhere where they feel they're a part of something bigger and they feel comfortable and they feel welcomed for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the learning curve with growing a business, but you have a very unique business that I think, once more word gets out there, it's like, man, you're just trying to keep people out the door or where else you're going to expand to, man. It's like sky's the limit with that.
Yeah.
What's the future of Joe? Like, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years, whether with the business, personal life, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to continue expanding. So, we've been in SF for a year and a half. We just opened Mill Valley in April. And the goal is to continue expanding. I think, every big market that has a lot of personal trainers is addressable to us. I think there's opportunity to sell our operation and model into existing gyms that are maybe struggling with some of the challenges we discussed, right? So yeah, I fully intend to keep growing this thing. And, one thing I always do want to be mindful of is everything we've been discussing here is the community, the relationships, people feeling like they're a part of something bigger. No matter how big the yard ultimately gets, like I never wanted to have a corporate feel or, a feel where people,
it's just a number.
Just a number.
Scan your badge right here and then go
Exactly.
on.
Exactly. So,
have you spent a lot of time working at the bigger gyms and working out 24-hour Equinox, whatever?
Yeah. I belonged to an Equinox for, 5 or 6 years.
We'll put them on the spot. Like, what's the thing about that? Is there anything there that you say, you know what, I wish they would have figured this problem out and then I would show up here more?
Yeah. I loved it. I had a great experience there. They knock it out of the park in terms of like feelings of exclusivity and, feeling cool, feeling a part, something bigger, but feeling part of something that's like cool and hip. And all the amenities that surround the gym are awesome, but for me, like the most important part of belonging to a gym is the gym. So, to show up to an Equinox on squat day and not being able to squat is a problem, and it's crazy because I've been back to an Equinox since I opened the yard. I've been to another similar gym locally, and you look around and it feels like mayhem. It just feels like, it's just a free for all. And, especially during busy hours. And, I get stressed when our gym, the yard is full because I worry that people aren't having an optimal experience. But then I compare, the hours, or the times where we're full compared to at an Equinox or another gym. And it's like night and day, picking a corner and fending for yourself and grabbing a pair of dumbbells because that's all you can do.
I'm hogging this area right here.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then at other times, looking across the gym and just seeing rows and rows and rows of machines and cardio equipment that just aren't being touched. And maybe over the course of the day, someone's using it, but I just think in a lot of ways it's a model that needs some innovation for sure.
It's amazing how I think about my past experience with 24-hour fitness, how much retail space, real estate, there we go. How much real estate is devoted to cardio equipment.
Right.
Rows and rows of treadmills and bikes and whatnot.
Yep.
And then only a small percentage for the actual weight room.
Right. And it's kind of designed for peak hours, right? It's designed to accommodate those hours of mayhem. And even during those time, it feels like, mayhem. So yeah, I think like between having a reservation model, having a layout with some level of exclusivity, whether it's the entire, both of our facilities are around 3,500 square feet. So they're not huge. They're not tiny, but it's not like a 15,000 square foot Equinox or something. So I don't know how it would work at a much larger scale. But like one thing I've thought is, within an Equinox, maybe there is a yard area, right? Where it's like, if you're planning on seeing a trainer or doing your powerlifting stuff, you make a reservation within the big box gym for your own space.
Yeah.
And everyone else can kind of fend for themselves on the cardio equipment and free weights.
If I actually stop to think about it, all the times I went to the big gyms, how much time I quote unquote wasted just waiting for the squat rack to open up or the bench to open up. And then, man, if I am pressed for time, having a place where I know I have an hour and everything's there, I ain't got to fight nobody for it.
Right.
I can get the workout that I need in and then go on with the rest of my day.
Yep.
It's awesome. It was one of the reasons why I have the gym here. Is for me, it's convenience. I go in there, I do what I need to do, and then I go on with the rest of my day.
Yep.
Trying to spend time driving to a 24-hour where am I going to get there? Am I going to get the bench today? Or is there going to be like 12 powerlifters on the squat rack in line? And then, there goes that idea.
Right.
I got to switch up. So knowing that I'm going to go to a yard and have an hour reserved for someone like me, it's been beneficial because I don't have a lot of time, and
Right.
to know that I have a specific area designated for me seems like a great thing.
Yep.
And then if I want to do group classes, or like for me, like the whole sled. So the fact that you have a sled there is like, okay, that's one of those cool things
Yeah.
that, we don't have around here because it needs a lot of real estate
Right.
to actually do.
Right.
So someone like me would definitely be like a client for the yard, because I just don't have a lot of time and I want to get in there and get my workout done. But
Yep.
I'm somebody that goes to the gym 6-7 days a week. So for me, it's like, all right, time, and I have to balance my regular job plus all this and everything
Yep.
else I got going on in my life.
Right.
Versus if if time isn't an issue, then yeah, I can go to the gym with like 4 or 5 buddies, and then pretty much most of the time we're just shooting the shit, and then occasionally we'll get to get to a bench press and see who can do the most, and it turns more into like just a social engagement than it does an actual gym session.
Right.
But you definitely got something going on there at the yard, and I have to make it out there. I've heard about it. It's like, okay, I get there one day and then I keep forgetting about it.
Yeah. You have to come out, man.
For me, it's the reminder. It's like, oh yeah, it exists, or what's going on there today, or whatnot. Like, what's your biggest strategy for getting the word out there? Are you like at events in the park? Are you at social media?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about like, there's no, when you're in business for yourself, when you're calling the shot, there's no limit in terms of like, what you can do.
Yeah.
Figuring out the marketing campaigns that have the highest return on investment is something I battle with daily, pursuing projects that are don't have a ton of upfront investment. Obviously, we're a bootstrap business. We don't have any investors or anything like that. So every dollar I spend, I'm very mindful of. You need to just be super mindful of not only financial resources, but time and effort, right? Like I don't want to spend a ton of time on an initiative if I don't think the return on time or financial investment is there. But the key learning for me, especially with sales into trainers, which really is a business to business sale, right? Is like I'm not actually convincing anyone to do anything. What I'm doing is consistently reaching out and building a relationship and being there for if and when the time comes, they're ready to make a decision and join the gym. So that's what a lot of our marketing strategy is centered around as well. It's like, any given post isn't necessarily, or event isn't necessarily going to result in X number of conversions. But what it does is, we're continually out there so people know we exist. They know we're doing things. We're building awareness. And whether we reach out directly or someone sees a post and they've just gone through something in their fitness journey where they're frustrated and ready to make a decision, that's kind of why we do it. So another thing I've been trying to push on the gentleman we just hired is, in the industry, generally in small business, the average response time, I think, is like something absurd, like 24 hours or 48 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
We've all had the experience of trying to coordinate with, a contractor or the cable company or whatever. So what I've said all along is, responsiveness and like responding within not hours, but minutes, and being there to answer questions is so important, because when people have that experience, whatever happens in their lives, when they're ready to make a decision, being there to jump on it is really, really important.
It's so right. And it's one of the bad things with social media is that we've been just kind of accustomed to just waiting for the quick hits. You have 3 seconds of my time. Pitch
Right.
me. What do you got? And then we're like, wait a minute. It's a lot to tell you what I have to offer. So
Right.
we've been forced into this spot where we have to make it something very small, make such a big impact. For me, for example, when I think of this podcast here, the idea is, if I'm telling you as a future listener, is If you're the type of person that wants control over every aspect of their life, specifically fitness and finances, I got a great product for you here. Listen to my podcast. Listen to the people who share their journey, how they got from point A to point B, the obstacles that they overcome. You don't have to listen to everything or take advice from everybody. If you're getting a little bit from every episode, that's kind of what I want you to get inspired of, is that there are ways for you to get control in your life through areas that a lot of us are told that we don't have control over.
Right.
Like, I'm thinking about yours, like, man, if your motto was like, if you want control over your time of the time of your day and get that time back, boy, look at this. You get an hour in the pod here, you have nobody around, you get your workout in, then you're back on with the rest of your day. It's like,
right.
Oh, wow, that hit me in a way that I never thought about. You're right. That's a good way.
Right.
Instead of like, okay, we have a gym.
Right.
All right. There's a gym there, there's a gym there, there's a gym there. What's this one?
Right.
Oh, time. That's what I want. I'm missing time in my life.
Right.
This is going to give me that time back.
Right.
So awesome. There you go. It's an easy pitch for you.
Yeah, I have to bring you on the team, man.
Man, I'm very fascinated with how people think and how to build trust. Part of it is from my job that I do for a living, where I'm seeing people in all different aspects of their life, and these themes just seem to come across like, wow, all this is because you didn't communicate that well, or because this person didn't trust you. Why are you really calling us to the scene? Oh, this is why. Okay, this is how people are making decisions. Books like, you ever read the book, The Psychology of Money?
No.
Or Millionaire Next Door?
I haven't, no.
So I have 3 books that have to get on your list.
Yeah. It's
amazing how people make these decisions. We all do it. We don't realize what we're actually doing. Like, geez, that's why people go to this place or buy that product. This is what's going on in the back of their mind.
Right.
So it's always fascinating me to hear that, how you build a business, how you engage your clients, how do you get the body of your dreams, how do you invest properly for the lifestyle that you have.
Right.
Again, no one has the right answer because it's specific to each individual person. Totally. But the more you have out there, the more you're going to learn.
Right. Yeah. I think it's, I just wrote a piece on this. I think it's not so much what you do, like whether it's your workout program or your business, whatever it is, like what you do on a day-to-day basis doesn't matter so much as doing something and doing it consistently and leveraging data to tweak and iterate what you're doing. Right. So, the whole concept, the name of the game in fitness is progressive overload, right? So mm-hmm. you're benching 4 sets of 12 of 135 one week. The next week you add 5 pounds, and the week after that you add 5 pounds, and before you know it, you've added 50 pounds to your bench. Like, whether you're doing 4 sets of 12 or 5 sets of 5, like, it doesn't really matter. What matters is doing it consistently and incrementally improving over the course of a long period of time. Same thing with business, right? Like, again, having good judgment and choosing the right battles and opportunities is important, and there's some luck. Like, there's 100% some luck, but on both, I mean, there's bad luck too, but how you capitalize on those opportunities or respond to the negative things is critical. But your process, following it without compromise, and continuing to build on the progress you're making mm-hmm. is kind of the name of the game.
Well, like anything in a business, especially, you also have to know why you're doing something. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, how is your clientele supposed to understand why they're actually here as well? Right. And it's such a big important thing, because almost everybody knows what they're doing, and some of them know how they're doing it. But if you ask them why they're doing it, besides making money, it's, why am I doing this? And then people start to pick up on that. Like, if I know why he's doing this, it just resonates with me more. Right. Getting that message across about, if you are trying to solve somebody else's problems, if you want control over your time, that's why I'm doing this, because I'm short on time too. So I get where you're coming from. I dig it. This is why I created my gym. I didn't create it for, people who want to look like Arnold, because I don't have that much equipment in each of the pods. Right. But if you want to look good and feel good and you don't have a lot of time, bam, this is the place for you, because this is what I was looking for. Like you said, you created this gym in the image of what you would want as a person that wants to work out without having to push each other out the way to get the same barbell and to get that time back in your life. Like, oh, that's why he's doing it. It makes sense now. It just starts to click. Right. Business and human relations, I guess, how it all flows together. Yeah, yeah. This has been a great episode, and you probably can't really figure out that we've been here almost 100 minutes.
Oh, damn.
Time flies. And I tell each one of my guests, too, at about the 45-minute mark, that's when this social phenomenon kicks in. Everything just starts to flow easier. Because at first, we're just trying to fill each other out. We want to make sure we're asking the right questions, and then it just starts to open up as we get engaged in that. happens actually it happens every time.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
cool.
you forget that it's been almost 2 hours since we started the conversation.
Yeah.
But this has been a great show. Joe, thank you so much for coming out. I'm excited to go try out the yard, and I'm glad to get the message out there to people around the Bay Area what the yard is, why it exists, and what you can gain from this gym that maybe you can't get at some other places that are more commercial or might be easier on the wallet. But this is exactly why you created this gym for the people that want to enjoy it. So what's the address for both of your gyms?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So our San Francisco location's in Pac Heights. It's at 2863 California Street. It's between Deviz and Broderick on California. And then our Mill Valley location is 215 Shoreline in Mill Valley. It's right in the Tam Junction area.
And what's the best way to get a hold of you? Website, Instagram?
Yeah, website is goyard.fit. Instagram handle's the same. To my point earlier, if you reach out, we will be responding within minutes.
Yeah. It's amazing how simple that is to respond in minutes, but how if you don't, it makes a big impact.
Totally.
I can't tell you how many people, there's probably some people in my list here that I reached out to for business or for coaching or potentially guests here. And if they don't follow back with me, I kind of put them aside.
Right.
And the person that says, hey, I'm with you, let's schedule this call, you're like, okay, you mean business.
Right.
Now I want to work with you.
Right.
Something as simple as that, like getting back to them right then there takes 1/10 of a second of your time, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Totally.
So we have Instagram, we have the website, and what's the best way to explain the membership for the gym? Do you offer like a trial? Is it a monthly membership? Is it per session?
Yeah, so it obviously depends on what type of user you are and how frequently you're coming. But our rates range from $180 for a 5-pack of credits up to $260 for an unlimited use. And then we have a bunch of different package offers for our trainers.
Gotcha. So if you would like, you can go through the trainer first and then get the pod that way, or you can come on your own and just say, I want the pod for today.
Yeah, totally. So if you're working with a trainer, all the administrative work is on the trainer. So the trainer purchases the sessions and books them. You just work with the trainer on, scheduling time, and you pay the trainer offline. I'm not involved with that. But if you're booking directly, you use our interface to purchase your sessions and make your reservations.
Everybody who's listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you like the episode, please make sure you share it and leave a comment for me down in the comment section. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. This is how the episodes grow. This is how the channel grows, and this is how I get the message out there. Thank you, Joe, for coming out.
Thanks, man.
Everybody have a good one. Take care.
Appreciate it.